What I'm going to be talking about is in this, and in this dog, and in every human. Any guesses? Yeah, it's DNA. When I was in second grade, I attended a seminar of sorts on DNA. From that moment on, I knew I was hooked. I forgot all about it for a while, sinking into astronomy, matter, weather, and energy. It was only until around the unit of cells that Ms. Sharma started talking about genetics and DNA once again. By that time, I was starting to warm up to the idea again. A few weeks later, we took our post-test on cells and started learning about deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, and ribonucleic acid, RNA. I've always loved genetics, but it took a backseat for about 5 years. I know genetics was the most interesting topic to me when we were learning about Punnett squares, and it just clicked. Not to mention, genetics probably answers the second most asked question in science: where do we come from? The first being, are we alone in the universe? I'm curious about future professions that involve genetics, as well as how knowing our DNA benefit us other than answering the basic questions about our lineage. I also want to know if DNA can detect certain diseases and what causes those diseases. So I did some research, and I found that some diseases can be found using DNA tests, while others cannot be because they're caused by multiple genes and environmental factors. Those type of genes that can't be detected are called complex diseases. There was a mistake on my part on the last slide. Other diseases are hard to detect through DNA tests because they're caused by multiple genes and environmental influences, not different multiple genes. Just because I care about DNA doesn't mean you have to. But I'm still going to try to convince you to. DNA defines who we are. We basically are DNA. Even though DNA doesn't fully define our personality, it defines a good chunk of it. You may be a hilarious person because your father was. In some cases, you may not be. My father was very mischievous. Me, on the other hand, not so much. Another reason DNA is so cool, it determines how we look, how we function, but it still separates us from other human beings. I mean, isn't it nice not to be a clone of someone? Imagine how many different DNA codes there has to be in this world. There are about 7.7 billion people in this world, and each and every one of them have a different genetic code, even identical twins. Identical twins don't have identical genetic makeup, but they have very similar ones. So we covered why you should be interested in genetics as an individual. But what about why our society should be interested in genetics? Why should we further research into DNA? A, it's what makes us. There's a reason DNA is called the blueprint of life. B, the involvement of genetics has helped us in countless ways. It helps us identify diseases. It tells us more about the human or Homo sapien race. And forensics is tracked through DNA. And that's only to name a few. Have you ever listened to the news only to hear that a cold case from about 50 years ago is closed because of a simple DNA test? I'm going to start my ending by telling you about an opportunity that has helped many people find out their lineage. Aeromexico, a Mexican airline, ran a campaign called DNA Discounts. In the campaign, there was a special discount. The way DNA played into this was the size of the discount depended on the amount of Mexican ancestry the person had. Turns out, 54.4% of the people tested had Mexican ancestry. I should probably say that most of them had negative viewpoints of Mexico, but that all changed in most cases, once they saw how Mexican they were. DNA is strong enough to change your mind. What else is it strong enough to do?
So I'm not trying to be mean to Mexicans or anything. It's just that was an example that was already there, so I just used it. I hope you don't get offended by it if you are Mexican.